Thank you, Naz. I'm Tina. I'm presenting on behalf of my co-authors. The first author, Pei-Yun, was the master students that I co-instructed with the third author, Hao-Chuan Wang. And our paper title is pretty long, but in generally, we dealt with how people miscommunicated, how romantic couples miscommunicated using I am. So nowadays, it's pretty common for couples to use instant messengers to maintain their romantic relationship on a daily basis. And it's actually the most affordable option time-wise and cost-wise. And instant messaging not only affords awareness of each other's status, but also sustains relational closeness, especially when couples are not co-located. But as you know, like instant messaging as a asynchronous communication tool, there often can be a time delay for people to respond to incoming messages. And several studies suggest that the delay can actually impact people's perception about one another when the recipient's responding time hugely deviates from the sender's expectation. So in such context, how senders interpret the delayed messages may act as a key mediator. For example, the delay can be considered as unintended. For example, when you're busy attending the conference and you're not aware of an incoming message, or you're simply not available to respond right at the moment. Or the message can be considered as intended, such as when you know that you're angry at your partner and you purposely ignore their message. So while much literature focuses on senders' expectation of how responsive a message should be, less attention has been paid to receivers' interpretation. So since communication is reciprocal, how receivers perceive senders' expectation, how they respond to the expectation, and how they interpret the expectation deserve equal attention. So we use the theoretical framework of grounding to examine how delayed instant messaging affects both senders' and receivers' communication behaviors and relationship dynamics. So briefly speaking, grounding is the process of reaching mutual knowledge, and it facilitates people to perceive, coordinate, and interpret information more correctly. So in romantic relationships, people spend a lot of time with each other, and the relationship closeness can actually help couples to develop mutual knowledge towards each other. So we're interested in looking into how romantic couples engage in and deal with delayed messages using grounding in instant messaging tool. So we propose two research questions. The first one is we want to know how romantic couples develop mutual knowledge in the context of delayed I am. And we want to know how this mutual knowledge affect their expectation about responsiveness, interpretation of the delay, and perception of each other in the context of delayed I am. So to answer the set of research questions, we conducted a diary study among 16 pairs of romantic couples who frequently use instant messages to communicate with each other. And here's a profile of our participants. Their age ranges from 19 to 33 years old. More than half of them use Line, which is the most popular instant messaging tool in Taiwan, as their primary conversational channel. And around 44% of them use Facebook Messenger. And most of them were in dating relationship, and half of them categorize themselves as long-distance couples, and the other half consider that their relationship is more geographically close. So we ask each participant to keep individual diaries and document incidents of delayed messages. That means that as a sender, if they experience a delay from their partner, and as a recipient, if they purposely or unpurposely delay a message. And also we ask them to document their corresponding perceptions about those incidents and how they dealt with them. And then we conducted follow-up one-on-one interview with each participant separately. The interview protocol cover question like, for example, their general instant messaging behavior, specific practices from that they document in the diary, and also their past cases or experience about the delay responses. We use a bottom-up approach to analyze the qualitative data from the diary and the interview. And we observed that romantic couples appear to engage in different types of grounding, including status, process, and context grounding. I'll be talking about the different types of grounding in the following talk. So by status grounding, it means that if you can share the common knowledge about each other's availability and movement. For example, if your partner knows that you're here in Montreal attending CHI, and the CHI sessions runs from, say, like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., something like that. And if your partner knows that, then you guys reach status grounding. So with status grounding, the senders can adjust their expectations and feelings toward a delayed response because they know that you're here attending a conference, so you're not available to reply to a message as soon as possible. And for the delayers, they can be relieved from the impractical expectation and negative feelings, for example, like guilt, associated with not being able to respond to their partner as soon as possible. So how do people reach status grounding? We found that they leverage both indirect and direct channels to accomplish status grounding on instant messaging tools. So for indirect channels, they speculated and learned what their partner was doing through user-generated and system-generated information on social media. For example, like the status signals, like the availability cues that show on the Facebook Messenger, or the status updates that Facebook posts on behalf of you. Other types of indirect system-generated channels like for example, actions on instant messenger. For example, it shows up that if you read or haven't read a message. And some of the digital footprint on the platform, for example, you're posting, you're commenting, you're liking, something like that. So if you say that you're not able to respond because you're in a meeting but still post things on Facebook or Twitter unrelated to the meeting, you might be in trouble if you get caught. So, and also our participant pointed out that they interpret status information based on the pattern of each other's messaging behaviors. For example, if you know that your partner always responds like long messages, but at that time, the message was really short, that can be implying the availability of unavailability of conversation engagement. Besides relying on indirect channels, our participants also adopted direct channel that's just actively asking about like their schedule and daily routine. So we found out that actually for romantic couples, much coordination was carried out between the two. However, if they fail to coordinate, some problems can emerge. So sometimes the participants believe that their partner should have known or should have understood their status since they share their daily lives with each other so much and so frequently. And that led them to think that they did not need to inform the other about like every detail explicitly. For example, if you think that sharing this much level of details is enough when your partner actually seeks this much, that may lead to some problem. And we observed one incident that our participant picked up a fight just because lack of status grounding. And the second dimension that emerged from our results is process grounding. That means if you can reach mutual knowledge about when a conversation is meant or perceived to start, pause, or terminate. We found out that even for romantic couples that share really intimate relationships, sometimes they could not really pinpoint whether their partner intended to start or finish a conversation, so they could not actually identify whether the incoming message was expected to be responded or not. And to reach process grounding, we learned that 3 couples from our 16 pairs, they developed really like cue communication norms, such as using certain emojis, GIFs, or like really cute phrases to indicate that this is actually the end of conversation, off you go. So the last dimension is context grounding. It indicated how well people can read between the lines. So when people correctly interpret the contextual information such as affect or urgency behind a message, we consider that they are coordinated in context grounding. For example, you might know that sometimes when your partner said it's okay doesn't really mean it is okay. So in that case, how effectively you can detect the undertone is important to reach context grounding. And sometimes we found out that the receiver strategically leveraged the nature of delay responses to convey their anger or indifference. With context grounding, the partners can interpret or understand such expression and determine if the delay was intended or unintended. But without context grounding, or the context grounding is unclear to the recipient, sometimes people may misinterpret the intention of the delay. For example, one of our participants said that her boyfriend thought that one of her delay was an indicator of her anger, and she actually terrified her boyfriend. But in reality, she just forgot to respond. So to answer our research questions, we found out that romantic couples develop mutual knowledge from both direct and indirect channels. And how well people leverage and understand information gathered from these channels influence senders' expectations and receivers' interpretation. So in terms of expectation, our findings point out that in delay message, senders do experience some expectancy violation when the amount of time it takes for recipients to reply diverges from what they expect. And as communication is mutual and grounding requires both parties, we propose that the expectancy should be extended from the sender's point of view, but include both senders and receiver as a couple. And we learned that when mutual knowledge is insufficient, senders may experience expectancy violation. Receivers may fail to stay aware of senders' expectancy violation and take no further action. But with status and process grounding, senders and receivers can resolve expectancy violations and consequences associated with a violation. So senders can possess more practical expectation about responsiveness, and receivers can assess the expectation of senders more accurately and deal with the delay incidents more properly and promptly. And in terms of interpretation, as our findings suggest, interpretation of the delay is also a key. And our study points out how to enhance interpretation. So as a sender, how do you know what a delayed message means? That comes the importance of context grounding, because it helps people to identify the reasons of a delay. And as a receiver, you can assess how the sender interprets the delays and handle the context more appropriately. So our findings indicate that romantic couples encounter just as many, if not more, grounding challenges as other types of coordination, say, in workplaces. And design should support these specific communication needs on instant messenger. And we present several designs to support grounding. For example, to have better status grounding, we suggest that the system may integrate and present information about each other's status from indirect and direct channels. So for the system can auto extract status information from, for example, like your message history. If you say something on Facebook Messenger about, I will have a lunch meeting with my collaborators today. And if your partner sends you a message this afternoon, so that the system can notify them that you might not be able to reply because you're in a lunch meeting with the collaborators. And other types of information that can be extracted includes social media information, for example, like your checking information on Swarm or your event calendar that you reply to attend on Facebook, of course, with your permission. And to strengthen process grounding, the system should facilitate user to identify the boundary of a complete cycle of conversation. We propose that the mechanism of highlighting, for example, like a pause or ending in a conversation can enable both parties to indicate the time when they intend to leave. And further information can be provided by, for example, like the reason of exit, such as going to work, going to bed, commuting, etc., for more nuances. And last, for context grounding, the system can help reduce the ambiguity of a message by using specific mark or signal to indicate that this message needs an immediate response or intention to avoid ambiguity. So that is the end of our talk, and thank you. Yeah.
We have time for questions now. You can come up to the mic and please state your name and affiliation.
Hi, I'm Emily from Google, and I was wondering, did you look at how attachment styles in the different couples affected their ability to find grounding and the way that they interpreted delays when they didn't have the right context or whatever?
I think that's really interesting questions. So the attachment style is definitely important in terms of the type of research that we conducted, but we actually didn't include that factor, but that would be a good future direction for us to go. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Giovanni from the University of Waterloo. Really interesting work. I'm in a long-distance relationship myself, so very useful information.
Did you get into a lot of trouble?
A little bit, especially this week. Okay. I was going to ask if you had noticed any sex differences in attributions of delays.
So I believe we conducted analysis on that part of the gender distribution, but as far as I know, we didn't find any like specific differences between including like gender, and also like because I said that in our participant we have long distance and geographically close couples, but no specific or significant difference among these factors. Yeah.
Hi, Tina.
Hi.
Ari Hautasari from the University of Tokyo. Very interesting work. I was just wondering about the automating or like supporting these grounding processes and how you would think this affects the intimacy between the romantic partners.
You mean support?
Or like your design implications at the end, like automating this grounding process.
That would be something interesting. So like how is the automatic response can convey the support from the...
No, what I mean mostly is that if we offer these romantic partners this, you know, some kind of a like a supporting tool or method for this the grounding process,